Most people spend decades planning for retirement, saving money, dreaming of freedom, and imagining all the wonderful things they'll finally have time to do. Then there are these retirees who apparently spent zero time planning what they'd actually do with all that freedom. These stories prove that retirement planning should include a section on common sense. 1. Harold retired after 35 years as an accountant and immediately decided he was destined to become a professional magician, despite never having performed a magic trick more complex than making his paycheck disappear. He spent $15,000 on professional magic equipment, hired a stagecoach who specialized in senior citizen entertainers, and booked himself a debut performance at the local community center's talent show. Harold's magic career peaked during his opening trick, when he made his toupee vanish permanently into a top hat that apparently had a hole in the bottom, leaving him bald and bewildered in front of an audience that included his former co-workers and several grandchildren who would never look at him the same way again. His magic empire collapsed when he realized that successful magic required practice, dexterity, and the ability to remember which hat was supposed to contain the rabbit, versus his disappeared hairpiece. 2. Margaret retired from teaching and decided to fulfill her lifelong dream of opening a bed and breakfast, despite having never run a business and living in a 2-bedroom ranch house that wasn't suitable for commercial hospitality. She converted her living room into a reception area, turned her garage into a dining room, and advertised online for guests who wanted an authentic home experience. Margaret's B&B empire attracted exactly 3 customers during its 6-month existence. 2 confused travelers who thought they were staying at an actual hotel, and 1 relative who felt sorry for her and pretended to be a paying guest. Her hospitality venture ended when she realized that running a bed and breakfast required multiple bedrooms, breakfast cooking skills, and proper business licensing, rather than just enthusiasm and extra towels. 3. Frank retired and immediately bought a motorcycle to recapture his youth, despite never having owned a motorcycle and being 72 years old with balance issues that made walking challenging on good days. He purchased a massive Harley-Davidson, leather gear that made him look like a geriatric biker gang member, and enrolled in a motorcycle safety course designed for people 60 years younger with significantly better reflexes. Frank's motorcycling career lasted exactly 3 weeks and ended when he discovered that motorcycles required coordination, strength, and the ability to operate complex machinery while balancing on 2 wheels at highway speeds. His bike spent more time in the repair shop than on the road, and Frank eventually sold it to a teenager who was thrilled to buy a nearly new motorcycle from someone who'd barely figured out how to start it. 4. Dorothy retired from nursing and decided to become a professional baker, convinced that her reputation for hospital cafeteria desserts qualified her to run a commercial bakery operation. She invested her entire retirement savings in professional baking equipment, rented commercial kitchen space, and launched Dorothy's Delights, with grand opening specials that attracted customers expecting professional quality baked goods. Dorothy's baking empire crumbled when she discovered that scaling recipes from serving 12 people to serving hundreds involved math skills she'd forgotten, ingredients that behaved differently in large quantities, and health department regulations that were significantly more strict than hospital kitchen standards. Her bakery lasted 4 months and left her with industrial-sized mixing equipment that she couldn't fit in her house and a freezer full of experimental pastries that even her family politely declined to eat. 5. Robert retired and decided to move to Costa Rica without ever having visited Costa Rica, speaking Spanish, or researching what living in Costa Rica actually involved beyond seeing pictures of beaches online. He sold his house, shipped his belongings to an address he'd found on the internet, and arrived in San Jose expecting tropical paradise and discovering bureaucratic reality. Robert's international adventure lasted 6 weeks, during which he lived in a hotel while trying to navigate housing markets, banking systems, and government processes in a language he didn't speak, in a culture he didn't understand. He eventually returned to his hometown, rented an apartment, and spent 2 years trying to retrieve his belongings from Costa Rican customs, while explaining to former neighbors why he was back so quickly from his permanent tropical retirement. 6. Linda retired from office work and immediately started an online business selling handmade crafts, despite having no crafting experience, online marketing knowledge, or business plan, beyond make things and sell them on the internet. She invested $8,000 in crafting supplies, photography equipment, and website development, creating Linda's Lovely Crafts with products that looked significantly better in her imagination than in reality. Linda's craft empire attracted 0 customers during its 8-month existence, partly because her handmade items looked suspiciously machine-made, and partly because her website featured blurry photos of crafts that customers couldn't identify or purchase through her shopping system that never worked properly. She eventually donated her entire inventory to charity and returned to crafting as a hobby rather than a business venture. 7. George retired and decided to become a day trader, convinced that his decades of reading the financial section qualified him to compete with professional investors who had advanced degrees, sophisticated software, and full-time research teams. He converted his den into a trading office complete with multiple computer monitors, financial news subscriptions, and investment software that promised to make stock trading simple for beginners. George's trading career cost him $23,000 in 6 months, as he discovered that reading about investing and actually investing were completely different skills, and that the stock market was significantly less predictable than newspaper articles had suggested. His trading empire ended when his wife discovered their retirement account balance and suggested that George's financial expertise might be better applied to managing their household budget rather than competing with Wall Street professionals. 8. Betty retired from retail management and decided to start a dog grooming business in her basement. Despite being allergic to dogs and having no experience with animal grooming, beyond occasionally brushing her neighbor's cat, she invested in professional grooming equipment, converted her basement into a grooming salon, and advertised services for pets whose owners trusted her retail management background to translate into animal care expertise. Betty's grooming empire lasted exactly 5 appointments, during which she discovered that dogs didn't respond to retail customer service techniques. Grooming required physical skills she didn't possess, and her allergies made it impossible to work with animals for more than 20 minutes without requiring emergency medication. She eventually sold her grooming equipment to a professional groomer and returned to volunteering at organizations that didn't involve direct animal contact. 9. William retired and immediately bought an RV to travel the country, despite never having driven anything larger than a sedan and having no experience with RV maintenance, camping, or navigating vehicles that were essentially houses on wheels. He purchased a massive motorhome, planned a 6-month cross-country adventure, and departed with enthusiasm that lasted approximately 200 miles before he discovered that RV driving required skills he didn't possess. William's travel adventure included getting stuck under low bridges, flooding campground electrical systems, and requiring roadside assistance more often than some people need medical attention. His RV eventually spent more time being repaired than traveling, and William sold it to a couple who actually knew how to operate recreational vehicles without creating emergencies at every campground. 10. Patricia retired from accounting and decided to become a personal fitness trainer, apparently believing that her recent gym membership qualified her to help other people achieve fitness goals she hadn't achieved herself. She completed an online certification course, rented studio space, and launched Patricia's Personal Training with workout programs based on exercises she'd seen other people doing at the gym. Patricia's fitness empire attracted clients who expected professional training and discovered that their trainer was learning exercises at the same time. They were, often by trial and error methods that resulted in confusion rather than fitness improvement. Her training business ended when she realized that successful personal training required knowledge, experience, and the ability to demonstrate exercises without injuring herself or her clients. 11. Arthur retired and decided to start a food truck business, convinced that his love of barbecue qualified him to operate a mobile restaurant, serving customers who expected professional food quality and service. He bought a used food truck, invested in commercial cooking equipment, and launched Arthur's Authentic BBQ without researching food service regulations, permit requirements, or the difference between backyard cooking and commercial food preparation. Arthur's food truck empire lasted 3 weeks and ended when health department inspectors discovered violations ranging from improper food storage to cooking methods that hadn't been approved for commercial use. His mobile restaurant dream cost him $35,000 and left him with a food truck that he converted into a very expensive storage shed for lawn equipment. 12. Joyce retired from library work and decided to become a wedding planner, apparently believing that organizing library events qualified her to coordinate weddings for couples who expected their special day to be managed by someone with actual wedding planning experience. She started Joyce's Perfect Weddings with marketing materials featuring weddings she'd attended as a guest, and testimonials from friends who'd agreed to provide references without understanding what wedding planning actually involved. Joyce's wedding empire planned exactly 2 weddings, both of which featured organizational disasters ranging from flowers delivered to wrong venues to reception music that included library closing announcements she'd accidentally recorded over the wedding playlist. Her wedding planning career ended when she realized that successful event coordination required skills beyond library science and the ability to manage multiple vendors, timelines, and demanding customers simultaneously. 13. Charles retired and immediately invested his entire pension in a franchise restaurant without researching the franchise company, the restaurant industry, or the specific challenges of running a food service business in his local market. He bought a sandwich shop franchise based on promotional materials that made restaurant ownership seem simple and profitable, then discovered that franchise restaurants required management skills, food service experience, and the ability to work 70 hours per week while maintaining quality standards. Charles's restaurant lasted 8 months and lost money every day. It was open primarily because he'd chosen a franchise location based on cheap rent rather than customer traffic and had no experience managing employees, inventory, or food preparation. His restaurant investment consumed his retirement savings and left him with equipment that he sold for 10 cents on the dollar to someone who actually knew how to run a restaurant. 14. Marilyn retired from customer service and decided to become a real estate agent, convinced that her decades of helping people qualify her to navigate one of the most complex and regulated industries in the economy. She completed real estate courses, paid licensing fees, and joined a real estate office where she quickly discovered that selling houses required knowledge of financing, construction, legal regulations, and market analysis that her customer service background hadn't provided. Marilyn's real estate career lasted 6 months and resulted in 0 sales, partly because she treated house showings like customer service calls, and partly because she couldn't answer basic questions about mortgages, property values, or home inspection processes. She eventually returned her real estate license and concluded that helping customers and helping customers buy houses were completely different professional skills. 15. Donald retired and decided to start an antique restoration business in his garage, despite having no experience with furniture repair, antique evaluation, or the specialized tools and techniques required for professional restoration work. He invested in restoration equipment, advertised services for antique furniture, and accepted restoration projects from customers who trusted his enthusiasm more than his qualifications. Donald's restoration empire damaged more antiques than it repaired, including a valuable desk that he refinished using modern techniques that destroyed its historical value and a chair that collapsed when he attempted structural repairs using inappropriate materials. His restoration business ended when customers began demanding refunds for projects that had reduced the value of their antiques, and Donald realized that restoration required expertise he couldn't acquire through trial and error methods. 16. Helen retired from teaching and decided to become a professional photographer, apparently believing that taking pictures at family gatherings qualified her to compete with professional photographers who had trained in lighting, composition, and commercial photography techniques. She invested $12,000 in professional camera equipment, rented studio space, and launched Helen's Portraits with pricing that reflected her equipment costs rather than her photography skills. Helen's photography empire attracted clients who expected professional quality portraits and received photos that looked like expensive snapshots taken by someone who owned expensive cameras but didn't understand how to use them effectively. Her photography business ended when she realized that professional photography required technical skills beyond owning professional equipment, and that customers could tell the difference between amateur and professional work regardless of how expensive her cameras were. 17. Roger retired and immediately bought a small farm to live off the land, despite having no agricultural experience and living his entire life in suburban environments, where his gardening experience consisted mainly of mowing grass and occasionally watering flowers. He purchased 20 acres, farm equipment he didn't know how to operate, and livestock that he planned to raise using information from farming magazines and YouTube videos. Roger's farming empire lasted one growing season during which he discovered that farming required knowledge of soil management, crop rotation, animal husbandry, and weather patterns that couldn't be learned from internet research. His farm produced vegetables that were mostly inedible, animals that required constant veterinary attention, and expenses that exceeded any possible agricultural income. He eventually sold the farm to actual farmers and returned to suburban living, with a new appreciation for grocery stores and people who knew how to grow food professionally. 18. Barbara retired from nursing and decided to open a beauty salon, convinced that her medical background qualified her to provide beauty services that were somehow related to healthcare. She rented salon space, invested in beauty equipment, and launched Barbara's Beauty and Wellness, with services that combined traditional salon treatments with medical-sounding procedures that weren't actually medical. Barbara's beauty empire attracted customers who expected professional beauty services and discovered that medical knowledge didn't automatically translate into cosmetology skills, and that cutting hair required different training than taking blood pressure. Her salon closed after 6 months when she realized that beauty services required specialized licensing, trainings, and skills that were completely different from nursing, and that customers wanted beauticians rather than former nurses who were learning beauty treatments through experimentation. 19. Kenneth retired and decided to start a consulting business to help other people solve problems he'd never actually solved himself, apparently believing that his work experience qualified him to advise people in industries he'd never worked in. He created Kenneth's Business Solutions, with consulting services ranging from marketing to financial management, based on business books he'd read and seminars he'd attended rather than actual consulting experience. Kenneth's consulting empire attracted exactly 2 clients, both of whom quickly discovered that their consultant was providing advice based on theoretical knowledge rather than practical experience, and that his solutions created more problems than they solved. His consulting business ended when he realized that successful consulting required expertise in specific areas rather than general business knowledge, and that clients wanted consultants who had actually solved similar problems rather than people who had read about problem solving. 20. Evelyn retired from office administration and decided to become an interior designer, convinced that her opinions about office decoration qualified her to redesign other people's homes professionally. She completed an online interior design course, invested in design software and sample materials, and launched Evelyn's Interior Excellence with portfolio photos of her own house and design concepts inspired by home improvement television shows. Evelyn's design empire attracted clients who expected professional interior design services and discovered that their designers' aesthetic preferences didn't necessarily match their own, and that interior design required knowledge of space planning, color theory, and budget management that couldn't be learned from decorating television programs. Her design business ended when clients began requesting refunds for design plans that looked better on paper than in their actual homes, and Evelyn realized that successful interior design required training and experience beyond having opinions about room decoration. 21. Ralph retired and immediately started a lawn care business, apparently believing that maintaining his own yard qualified him to care for other people's properties professionally. He invested in commercial lawn equipment, printed business cards advertising Ralph's Reliable Lawn Care, and began seeking customers who wanted professional lawn maintenance from someone with decades of suburban grass-cutting experience. Ralph's lawn care empire discovered that professional lawn care involved knowledge of turf management, irrigation systems, pest control, and seasonal maintenance schedules that were significantly more complex than weekend yard work. His business lasted one growing season during which he learned that different grass types required different care, that commercial equipment required maintenance skills he didn't possess, and that customers expected consistent results rather than the trial and error approach he'd used on his own property. Ralph eventually sold his equipment and returned to caring for his own yard while leaving professional lawn care to people who actually understood turf management. 22. Gladys retired from secretarial work and decided to become a tax preparer, convinced that her experience with office paperwork qualified her to navigate tax law and help people manage their financial obligations to the government. She completed a tax preparation course, invested in tax software, and launched Gladys's Tax Solutions during tax season with services for clients who needed professional tax help. Gladys's tax empire lasted exactly one tax season, during which she discovered that tax preparation required knowledge of constantly changing tax law, complex financial situations and liability issues that went far beyond basic paperwork skills. Her tax business ended when several clients received audit notices related to returns she'd prepared, and Gladys realized that tax preparation errors could result in serious consequences for both her clients and herself. She eventually returned her tax preparation certification and concluded that helping people with taxes required expertise that couldn't be acquired through short-term training courses. 23. Walter retired and decided to start a handyman business, apparently believing that his experience fixing things around his own house qualified him to repair other people's homes professionally. He invested in professional tools, printed business cards advertising Walter's Home Repairs, and began accepting projects from customers who needed handyman services from someone with apparent construction experience. Walter's handyman empire discovered that professional home repair required knowledge of building codes, electrical systems, plumbing regulations, and construction techniques that were significantly more complex than household maintenance projects. His business ended after 6 months when customers began requesting refunds for repairs that had created bigger problems than the original issues. And Walter realized that successful handyman work required training and licensing that he didn't possess. His handyman career left him with expensive tools that he used mainly for his own home projects and a new appreciation for professional contractors who actually knew how to fix things correctly. 24. Dolores retired from retail and decided to become a life coach, convinced that her decades of work experience qualified her to help other people solve life problems that she hadn't necessarily solved in her own life. She completed an online life coaching certification, created Dolores' Life Direction with coaching services for people seeking personal and professional guidance, and began accepting clients who needed life advice from someone with apparent wisdom and experience. Dolores' coaching empire attracted clients who expected professional life coaching services and discovered that their coach was providing advice based on personal opinions rather than coaching training, and that life coaching required skills beyond giving advice to friends and family members. Her coaching business ended when clients realized they weren't making progress toward their goals, and that their life coach couldn't provide the structured guidance and accountability they needed to create meaningful life changes. 25. Howard retired and immediately bought a boat to start a fishing charter business, despite having limited boating experience and no commercial fishing knowledge. He purchased a used fishing boat, obtained commercial licenses, and launched Howard's Fishing Adventures, with charter services for customers who wanted professional fishing guides with extensive marine experience. Howard's charter empire lasted one fishing season, during which he discovered that commercial fishing required knowledge of fish behavior, weather patterns, navigation, and boat maintenance that couldn't be learned through weekend recreational fishing. His charter business ended when customers began requesting refunds for fishing trips where the guide was learning fishing locations at the same time they were. And Howard realized that successful charter fishing required expertise in both fishing and boat operation that he didn't possess. He eventually sold his boat and returned to recreational fishing as a hobby rather than a business venture. 26. Ruth retired from banking and decided to become a financial advisor, apparently believing that her experience processing financial transactions qualified her to provide investment advice and financial planning services to clients seeking professional financial guidance. She completed financial advisor licensing requirements, joined a financial services firm, and began offering services to clients who needed comprehensive financial planning. Ruth's advisory career discovered that financial advising required knowledge of investment markets, insurance products, tax planning, and estate planning that were significantly more complex than banking transactions. Her advisory business struggled when clients realized their advisor was learning about financial products at the same time they were, and Ruth eventually concluded that successful financial advising required expertise and ongoing education that extended far beyond banking experience. 27. Ernest retired and decided to start a catering business, convinced that his reputation for potluck contributions qualified him to provide professional catering services for events requiring commercial food preparation and service. He invested in commercial cooking equipment, obtained catering licenses, and launched Ernest's Event Catering, with services for parties, weddings, and corporate events. Ernest's catering empire lasted 6 months, during which he discovered that professional catering required knowledge of large-scale food preparation, event coordination, food safety regulations, and customer service that were completely different from cooking for family gatherings. His catering business ended when clients began complaining about food quality, service timing, and event coordination problems that resulted from his lack of professional catering experience. Ernest eventually sold his equipment and returned to contributing to potluck dinners rather than organizing them professionally. 28. Mildred retired from education and decided to become a personal organizer, convinced that her classroom organization skills qualified her to help other people organize their homes and offices professionally. She completed an organizing certification course, invested in organizing supplies and systems, and launched Mildred's Organization Solutions with services for clients who needed professional help managing their personal spaces. Mildred's organizing empire discovered that personal organizing required understanding of individual lifestyle needs, storage solutions, and behavior change strategies that were different from classroom management. Her organizing business struggled when clients realized their organizer was applying classroom organization methods to personal spaces that required different approaches. And Mildred eventually concluded that successful personal organizing required training specific to residential and office organization rather than educational experience. 29. Vernon retired and immediately started a security consulting business, apparently believing that his experience with workplace security procedures qualified him to provide professional security analysis and recommendations for businesses seeking comprehensive security solutions. He created Vernon's Security Solutions with consulting services for commercial and residential security based on security knowledge gained from employee training rather than security industry experience. Vernon's consulting empire attracted clients who expected professional security expertise and discovered that their consultant was providing recommendations based on general security awareness rather than specialized security knowledge. His consulting business ended when clients realized they needed security consultants with actual security industry experience rather than general security awareness. And Vernon concluded that security consulting required expertise that extended far beyond employee security training. 30. Phyllis retired from healthcare administration and decided to become a massage therapist, convinced that her medical background qualified her to provide therapeutic massage services that combined healthcare knowledge with massage techniques. She completed massage therapy training, invested in massage equipment, and launched Phyllis's Therapeutic Massage, with services that emphasized the medical aspects of massage therapy. Phyllis's massage empire discovered that massage therapy required hands-on skills, physical stamina, and therapeutic knowledge that were different from healthcare administration. Her massage business struggled when clients realized their therapist was still learning massage techniques while providing services. And Phyllis eventually concluded that successful massage therapy required extensive practical training and physical abilities that couldn't be acquired through short-term certification programs. 31. Clarence retired and decided to start a pet grooming business, apparently believing that his experience grooming his own pets qualified him to provide professional grooming services for other people's animals. He invested in professional grooming equipment, converted his garage into a grooming salon, and launched Clarence's Pet Grooming, with services for dogs and cats whose owners trusted his pet ownership experience. Clarence's grooming empire lasted 4 months, during which he discovered that professional pet grooming required knowledge of animal behavior, grooming techniques, and breed-specific care that couldn't be learned from grooming his own pets. His grooming business ended when clients began complaining about grooming results that didn't meet professional standards. And Clarence realized that successful pet grooming required specialized training and experience with different animal breeds and temperaments. 32. Norma retired from customer service and decided to become a wedding photographer, convinced that her experience taking family photos qualified her to document one of the most important days in people's lives. She invested in professional photography equipment, created a portfolio using family photos, and launched Norma's Wedding Photography with services for couples seeking professional wedding documentation. Norma's photography empire discovered that wedding photography required technical skills, artistic ability, and event management capabilities that were significantly more demanding than family photography. Her photography business ended after photographing 3 weddings where couples were disappointed with photos that looked like expensive snapshots rather than professional wedding photography. And Norma realized that wedding photography required expertise that extended far beyond owning professional cameras. 33. Gilbert retired and immediately bought a small restaurant, convinced that his love of cooking and eating qualified him to operate a commercial food establishment serving customers who expected professional food quality and service. He purchased a failing restaurant, invested in equipment upgrades, and reopened as Gilbert's Good Eating with menu items based on his favorite recipes rather than commercial food service requirements. Gilbert's restaurant empire lasted 7 months, during which he discovered that restaurant operation required knowledge of food costs, health regulations, staff management, and customer service that were completely different from home cooking. His restaurant closed when he realized that successful restaurants required business management skills and food service experience that he didn't possess, and that his cooking skills didn't translate into commercial food preparation abilities. 34. Edith retired from office work and decided to become a house cleaning service owner, apparently believing that her experience maintaining her own home qualified her to provide professional cleaning services for other people's houses. She invested in commercial cleaning equipment, hired part-time employees, and launched Edith's Cleaning Excellence with services for residential customers seeking professional housekeeping. Edith's cleaning empire discovered that professional house cleaning required efficiency, consistency, and cleaning techniques that were different from personal housekeeping. Her cleaning business struggled when clients complained about cleaning quality and service reliability, and Edith realized that managing cleaning employees and maintaining professional cleaning standards required business skills and cleaning expertise that extended beyond personal home maintenance experience. 35. Wilbur retired and decided to start a computer repair business, convinced that his recent experience learning to use computers qualified him to fix other people's computer problems professionally. He invested in computer diagnostic tools, created business cards advertising Wilbur's computer solutions, and began accepting repair jobs from customers who needed professional computer technical support. Wilbur's computer empire lasted 3 months, during which he discovered that computer repair required technical knowledge, diagnostic skills, and troubleshooting abilities that couldn't be learned from basic computer use. His repair business ended when customers began requesting refunds for computers that were in worse condition after his repair attempts. And Wilbur realized that successful computer repair required extensive technical training rather than general computer familiarity. 36. Hazel retired from retail management and decided to become a personal shopper, apparently believing that her shopping experience qualified her to select clothing and accessories for other people with different style preferences and body types. She created Hazel's Personal Shopping, with services for clients who needed professional style advice and wardrobe selection assistance. Hazel's shopping empire discovered that personal shopping required knowledge of fashion trends, body types, color coordination, and individual style preferences that were different from her own shopping preferences. Her shopping business struggled when clients were disappointed with clothing selections that reflected Hazel's taste rather than their own style needs. And she eventually concluded that successful personal shopping required fashion expertise and the ability to understand other people's style preferences rather than applying her own fashion opinions. 37. Lloyd retired and immediately started a lawn mowing service, convinced that his decades of yard maintenance qualified him to provide professional lawn care for customers seeking reliable grass cutting services. He invested in commercial mowing equipment, printed business cards, and launched Lloyd's Lawn Service with weekly mowing services for residential customers. Lloyd's Lawn Empire discovered that professional lawn care required efficiency, reliability, and customer service skills that were different from maintaining his own property. His lawn business struggled when customers complained about inconsistent service quality and scheduling problems. And Lloyd realized that successful lawn services required business management skills and the ability to maintain professional standards across multiple properties, rather than applying his personal yard maintenance experience. 38. Gladys retired from healthcare and decided to become a nutrition consultant, convinced that her medical background qualified her to provide dietary advice and nutrition planning services for people seeking professional nutrition guidance. She completed nutrition certification courses, created Gladys's Nutrition Guidance, and began offering services for clients who needed comprehensive nutrition planning. Gladys's nutrition empire discovered that nutrition consulting required knowledge of dietary science, meal planning, and individual nutrition needs that were different from general healthcare knowledge. Her consulting business struggled when clients realized their nutrition consultant was learning about nutrition at the same time they were, and Gladys eventually concluded that successful nutrition consulting required specialized nutrition education rather than general healthcare experience. 39. Marvin retired and decided to start a home inspection business, apparently believing that his experience as a homeowner qualified him to evaluate other people's houses for structural problems, safety issues, and maintenance needs. He completed home inspection training, invested in inspection tools, and launched Marvin's Home Inspections, with services for real estate transactions requiring professional property evaluation. Marvin's inspection empire discovered that home inspection required knowledge of construction, electrical systems, plumbing, and building codes that were significantly more complex than home ownership experience. His inspection business struggled when clients and real estate agents began questioning inspection reports that missed significant problems or identified issues that didn't actually exist. And Marvin realized that successful home inspection required extensive technical training and construction knowledge. 40. Bernice retired from administrative work and decided to become a travel agent, convinced that her personal travel experience qualified her to plan trips and provide travel advice for customers seeking professional travel planning services. She completed travel agent certification, joined a travel agency network, and launched Bernice's Travel Planning with services for clients who wanted professional travel coordination. Bernice's travel empire discovered that travel planning required knowledge of travel industry regulations, booking systems, destination expertise, and customer service that were different from personal travel experience. Her travel business struggled when clients experienced travel problems related to bookings she'd arranged, and Bernice realized that successful travel planning required industry knowledge and experience that extended far beyond personal travel history. 41. Harvey retired and immediately bought a food truck to start a mobile restaurant business, convinced that his backyard barbecue skills qualified him to operate a commercial food service vehicle serving customers who expected professional food quality and service. He invested in a used food truck, commercial cooking equipment, and launched Harvey's Mobile Meals with barbecue and comfort food items. Harvey's food truck empire lasted 2 months, during which he discovered that food truck operation required knowledge of food safety regulations, mobile kitchen management, and customer service that were completely different from backyard cooking. His food truck business ended when health department inspections revealed violations he didn't know existed, and Harvey realized that commercial food service required training and licensing that he didn't possess. 42. Agnes retired from customer service and decided to become a dog trainer, apparently believing that her experience with pets qualified her to provide professional dog training services for customers seeking behavioral modification and obedience training. She completed dog training certification courses, invested in training equipment, and launched Agnes's Dog Training with services for problem dogs and new puppies. Agnes's training empire discovered that dog training required knowledge of animal behavior, training techniques, and problem-solving skills that were different from pet ownership experience. Her training business struggled when clients realized their trainer was learning dog training methods while working with their pets, and Agnes eventually concluded that successful dog training required extensive practical experience with different dog breeds and behavioral problems. 43. Stanley retired and decided to start a handyman service specializing in home repairs, convinced that his experience fixing things around his own house qualified him to provide professional repair services for other people's homes. He invested in professional tools, obtained business licenses, and launched Stanley's Home Solutions with repair services for customers seeking professional home maintenance. Stanley's handyman empire discovered that professional home repair required knowledge of building codes, specialized tools, and repair techniques that were more complex than household maintenance projects. His repair business struggled when customers began requesting refunds for repairs that created additional problems, and Stanley realized that successful handyman work required professional training and experience rather than general home maintenance skills. 44. Evelyn retired from office management and decided to become an event planner, convinced that her experience organizing office parties qualified her to coordinate weddings, corporate events, and social gatherings for clients seeking professional event management services. She completed event planning courses, invested in planning materials, and launched Evelyn's Event Excellence with comprehensive event coordination services. Evelyn's planning empire discovered that event planning required knowledge of vendor management, budget coordination, and timeline management that were significantly more complex than office party planning. Her event business struggled when clients experienced coordination problems and budget overruns, and Evelyn realized that successful event planning required industry experience and the ability to manage multiple vendors and complex logistics simultaneously. 45. And finally, there's Melvin, who retired and decided to solve his boredom problem by starting 7 different businesses simultaneously, apparently believing that retirement meant he should try everything he'd ever considered doing all at once. Melvin launched a lawn care service, a pet sitting business, a house painting company, a computer repair service, a catering operation, a handyman business, and a consulting firm, convinced that diversification would guarantee success in at least one venture. His multi-business empire lasted 6 months, during which he discovered that running one business successfully required more time and expertise than he possessed, and that running 7 businesses meant failing at 7 different things rather than succeeding at one thing. Melvin's entrepreneurial experiment ended when he realized he was spending more money on business licenses, equipment, and insurance than he was earning from all his ventures combined, and that retirement should probably involve choosing 1 or 2 activities rather than attempting to become a one-person business conglomerate. Here's what these retirement disasters teach us. Just because you have time to do something doesn't mean you should do it, and enthusiasm doesn't automatically translate into expertise. The secret to successful retirement isn't finding new ways to prove you're still capable. It's finding ways to enjoy the freedom you've earned without turning it into expensive life lessons. Subscribe for more proof that retirement planning should include a section on avoiding retirement disasters.